It is filed. Cooperrider V. Beshear. It was actually filed yesterday, which was the Ides of March. So it was a little bit planned to be filed on the Ides of March because, of course, that is known as the day to settle your debts. It is also the day known where, well, we all know Caesar and the Ides of March. So we thought historically fitting to maybe file Cooperrider V. Beshear in the Ides of March. Let's talk about what Cooperrider V. Beshear is. It's a federal lawsuit that is dealing with the governor's First Amendment violations of myself, my fellow petitioners in Beshear's impeachment, Jacob Clark, Tony Wheatley, those two, as well as the Brianna grand jurors have joined us on this case, actually. So that's right, old Cooperrider here. Got the Brianna grand jurors to sue the governor. Also, we have the Goforth petitioners also joining us on the case. Now, a lot of people wonder, why are they joining us on this case? Well, they're joining us on this case because of the other plaintiff involved, which is the clerk for the House. And so let's kind of go over. So basically, the governor and the impeachment happens, right? We've all seen, I think, Jason Nemes's that little worm, little snake in the grass, no backbone having gentleman. And the reason why I'm saying that, I'm being so attacky there, is because he comes out with these comments he's putting on Facebook that literally says, I'm not even paraphrasing here, it literally says the governor did break the Constitution. He just didn't think the governor breaking the Constitution led to the impeachable offense. So what we allege in our impeachment, the impeachment charges of him infringing on rights of individuals such as going to church, he says did happen. It was an infringement. The governor did break the Constitution. The question is, did he knowingly break it, which we had evidence he did that we submitted. The evidence is from old Rodney Brewer saying, hey, this is clearly a First Amendment violation. Them doing it anyways. We asked for them to call witnesses, call Rodney Brewer, do a full and complete investigation. They didn't. They didn't do it because they didn't like the pressure. They didn't like the heat. They didn't like the way we were treating them. The way we were making their lives uncomfortable with too many calls, too many emails, because, of course, doing your job, doing what you were elected to do, doing what you ran on some of them, I'm looking at you, Kim King, is a little too much to ask for. Kim King, during election time, was awfully against Beshear, really railed against him. After election time, it seems like she did what quite a lot of the rhinos do, laid down. So we put them in a position where they had to look at impeaching the governor. They found he did violate the Constitution. They just didn't impeach him because, whatever. And then, because of that, because the way that the law is wrote, though they've never done this before to anybody being impeached or any impeachment petitions, they said that the cost bill, the cost to the accused, as well as the cost for the impeachment committee, will be passed on to the petitioners. There's a problem with this. And it's always a risk for us to file. We don't know how it's going to turn out, but there's certainly an argument that says that the First Amendment allows us to do what we're doing. I'll give you real quick for all you people to know that don't know what the First Amendment says. It says, Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion, which, of course, Beshear banned church on Easter, prohibiting the free exercise, therefore, or abridging the freedom of speech, of the press, or the right of the people to peaceably assemble, and to petition the government for redress of grievances. Redress of grievances. So when we filed our petition, it was our right to petition the government for redress of a First Amendment violation that really occurred. The own impeachment committee agrees it occurred. And that is our right, and they can't make a law abridging it. Well, one would say making a law that passes on $42,000 of a bill to an individual would be abridging their freedom and their right for redress, which is what we saw and which is what we're seeing them do. Now, why were we joined by the other petitioners? Well, outside of the governor passing us an $18,000 bill from lawyers that are already paid by employees of the government, the impeachment committee decided to tack on an additional about $24,000. Not paying for the impeachment committee's time themselves, but apparently they used some outside law firm because, isn't Jason Nemes a lawyer? Isn't most of them? A lot of them are lawyers in there, I do believe. But of course, somehow they're such terrible lawyers, they need to hire an outside law firm. And then, of course, because, they're thinking, I'm going to pass this cost bill on to them. And then they jack up the prices of KSP and everything else. And don't, it was punitive. I mean, our cost bill, $42,000. GoForce cost bill, the petitioners there, $12,000 being assessed by the committee. That's why they're joining us on the impeachment. Same with the Breonna Taylor grand jurors on the lawsuit is because they also want the House to not assess the costs. Daniel Cameron's impeachers from the grand jury, they did not get a cost assessed against them from Daniel Cameron because, quite frankly, Daniel Cameron's a better lawyer and he saw what was coming. Daniel Cameron saw that it was clearly a First Amendment violation. Speculating. But he clearly saw it was a First Amendment violation. He, recognizing that, said, I'm not falling for it. But, of course, Andy Beshear fell for it. He went ahead and took advantage of it because he's a punitive individual. That's the kind of person he is. He's punitive. And so because of that, him getting blinded, decided to pass a cost bill. Daniel Cameron didn't pass it. Then the committee voted to pass on the additional cost bill to us. And what is funny about it, if you guys know how civil law works, and because this case is pretty solid case, anybody who looks at the case, looks at the filings, I encourage you to do so. Cooperrider V. Beshear sees that it is a solid case. And there's a few things that are really funny here. First off, somehow, while being asked to investigate the governor's First Amendment violations, the impeachment committee and the governor managed to violate my First Amendment. Isn't that ironic? Somehow they managed to violate my First Amendment while they were investigating First Amendment violations. Additionally, what's ironic is in their attempt to charge us a total of $60,000 in cost bill because of the way civil law works, they're going to end up, if we win, having to pay our lawyer fees, which, considering this case and the length of time and everything else, could be $100,000, $200,000. Somehow, if we win, the governor of the impeachment committee would have trying to collect $60,000 into a bill for $200,000. Ironic, isn't it? It's funny. It's funny to watch this play out. And keep watching because it's going to keep playing out. And this is not going the way they expected. This is not going the way they want it to go. But, of course, anybody with a cursory understanding of the First Amendment, which, of course, Beshear doesn't have, as he's constantly broken over this past year, I believe about 4 or 5 times, as found guilty by the impeachment committee, by our state treasurer, by Daniel Cameron, by Sixth Circuit Court, as he's been found guilty of doing several times. He has once again done it again. And here we have Cooperrider V. Beshear. An interesting case that puts the law in an interesting position. Because, of course, they pass these costs on to deter people from filing impeachment charges. However, the other problem they have here is a viewpoint discrimination. That's not allowed. You're not allowed to have viewpoint discrimination. What do I mean? Well, if you file a petition to not impeach the governor, so let's say I file a petition to impeach the governor, you file a petition to not impeach the governor. I get passed on a cost bill, but the person who filed to not impeach the governor does not. That's a viewpoint discrimination. Can't do that. You can't penalize me. You can't pass a cost on to me for a case because of just simply the viewpoint. That's additional part of this case. I'll be going over the next couple of days through posts. I'll go over to our response committee on the cost bill because we also responded. We also have been clearly, hey, if we lose, we are out $50,000 if you guys want to donate to that. If we win and we're not out that $50,000, we will be donating that money to Kentucky Liberty, which I'll talk about here in a second about what that organization is, what that organization's goals are, and I'll talk about April 17th event. But Ed Massey, while he's sitting on the impeachment committee, had proposed a law to change the impeachment process. That impeachment process would make it to where you'd have to have a legislator and a co-sponsor to put forward impeachment. Well, that would make it harder for a citizen to impeach a governor than it would be for a legislator. And once again, we do have a First Amendment right for redress. Would that law even be constitutional? There's an argument there. So what I think the answer is, actually, I don't like the citizen impeachment. I'll tell you why. Having done it too, it's the only thing afforded to us in Kentucky to have our grievances against elected officials, judges and governors, AGs. We can't impeach legislators. But the reason why I don't like it is because it still requires legislators' agreement to remove someone that maybe we, the citizenry, all agree should be removed. So maybe the law should be changed, but it should be changed instead into a recall option. Maybe a recall option that says you got to get 15% of signatures of people who voted in that election. So let's say there was 100,000 people that voted in an election. We'd have to get 15,000 signatures. Of course, they got to be verified, everything else. So it'd be probably closer to 30,000 signatures you'd have to get in order to trigger another election, a special election, to see if that person gets recalled. I would like this better, and I'll tell you why. First, because it doesn't involve a legislator's consent. This is something that we, the people, can do to hold individuals accountable in the government. The second reason why I personally like a recall option better is because it does create a situation. I fully believe if we had a recall option in this state, Governor Beshear wouldn't have done what he's done over the past year. Because he knows all he's got to do is piss off 15 to 20% population size of the election he got elected in to know that he faces a recall challenge now. We've seen Newsom in California, very blue state, successfully getting recalled, triggered, getting enough signatures for recall. What we would see here in this state, which is a red state, if I'm Governor Beshear and blue, I'm in this red state, they're real pissed off. I'd be real afraid of doing things if I was him. Things that he knows is not something that the electorate, his citizenry, would be happy with. So instead, I like a recall option better because it holds individuals accountable better to we, the people, from doing extraneous things. So I think the law should be changed. But I don't think it should be changed the way Massey wants it, that just keeps giving more power to the legislators. I think the law should be changed into a recall option. My personal viewpoint. Let me know what you think. Before I move on to the Beans Brewed lawsuit, I want to remind everybody to hit that share button. Across all platforms right now, I got about 60 viewers. Do I have 60 shares? I'm just wondering. Hit the share button for me, guys. Thank you. As well, feel free to support us. You can go online, shop.brewedco.com, BREWEDCO.com. As well, you can go to donate.brewedco.com if you want to help with these lawsuits. I'm going to tell you about the Beans Brewed lawsuit here in a second. That is to lift all mandates. Try to go into it. So, but yeah, support us, right? Buy our coffee. Go to the shop, man. It's a good place. It's a fun place. You feel free. Sun's up, garage doors up. We got patio furniture out there. It's real nice now. Real nice time to come to Brewed. Going into the Beans Brewed lawsuit, however, this is a lawsuit based upon the SB1, SB2, and HB1 laws that Judge Shepard's trying to hold up. The first hearing on that was today. That was a hearing to see if they're going to let Beans and Brewed onto an already established case. That's that Speedway case up in Florence, up in northern Kentucky. If they let us onto that case, the reason why letting us onto that case might have a better push than you would have for something like the Goodwood case, which, by the way, you should absolutely should have, should be supporting, for sure. Support Goodwood. But Goodwood's lawsuit there, the dangers of it is that it will get tossed into the Franklin County Court under Judge Shepard, which he'll also hold it up. That's the concern. So of similar grounds, based on similar ideas, but yet in a different circuit, trying to intercede onto an already established case in a friendly judge circuit, this case goes. It appears Beans will be led on. It's up in the air on whether or not Brood will be led on. Brood's usefulness in this case is due to our pending ABC actions, but Beans can carry this through if they're only on it, and that would in turn lift, if successful, we're seeking an injunction onto the governor's mandate saying he doesn't have the right to pass those under HB1, SB1, and SB2. And if successful, it would lift the mask mandates. It would lift the capacity bans. It would lift the curfews. It would lift every single COVID-19 mandated restriction until the governor would call a special session of the legislators for them to discuss. A nice lawsuit, a solid lawsuit, a good lawsuit. Definitely something that is important and good to support. That's the Beans Brood lawsuit going on there in northern Kentucky. Right now, it's the legislators' last day before they are past veto proof. What do I mean by that? Well, any laws passed after today will not be able to overcome the governor's veto. So they're passing just a bunch of laws, a flurry of laws. They're still going. They might even go till midnight. So they're still passing a lot of laws. We'll talk about it tomorrow. But one of the things they passed and definitely are working on there is the budget. And I want to talk real quick about the broadband discussion. And the broadband discussion is putting money into expanding the internet reach out in eastern Kentucky, putting in broadband. And I'm a supporter of helping out eastern Kentucky for this reason. Okay, here's the Liberty reason why. The reason why, and I covered this yesterday, eastern Kentucky is in the state it's in is because of big government regulation killing an industry that all these towns grew up around. It's big government that caused this problem. Big government also offered a coal severance package to eastern Kentucky to help them recover from it. It's crappy government at state level that then misspent that money and did not provide the economic opportunities of building up that area around a different industry since big government came in and destroyed it. So what I look at that as, the way I look at that is since big government destroyed it, it is helpful under, of course, one could say under the Fifth Amendment takings clause, that the government has to has to compensate that area for taking something from them. That could be a liberty argument behind it. I'm just saying for you people who are like, I don't like government handouts. I hear you. I don't personally like it either. In fact, what I'm going to go to is evidence that private industry does it better than government. And here's why I don't think we should be investing in broadband. And I have a different solution. Starlink, built by Tesla, built by Elon Musk there. Starlink, SpaceX, sorry. Starlink will be available in eastern Kentucky mid to late of 2021, according to the Starlink website. You can get Starlink internet in hazard area starting mid to late 2021. Starlink is satellite internet that gives you around a 200 megabytes. So it's HughesNet exists now, but it kind of sucks. Starlink gives you around a 200 megabyte up speed and a 30 megabyte down speed. To give you an idea, guys, on what I'm broadcasting on right now, and now I'm going to tell you guys probably far too much about my internet, but to give you an idea, to run a speed test on what I'm running on right now, I'm running on 170-ish, 80, 90-ish down, and I'm running on right around about 10, 11 up. Not great internet for sure. But Starlink providing 150, 200 up, and then 30 down could provide the exact same experience for internet I'm experiencing right here in Lexington, Kentucky. Starlink costs right now to the people on the beta, it costs about $550 delivered after taxes and upfront costs for the equipment and $100 a month. Not far off from normal cost of broadband, but comparative. Has a higher upfront cost for sure. My argument would be by the time we get broadband built out to these areas, Services like Starlink, the private industry, will be able to provide better internet options to that area than we can provide through broadband that requires less costs because it's through satellites that in turn delivers internet without needing massive infrastructure buildup. I think that needs to enter into our broadband discussions. Should we, instead of spending money on broadband wire that maybe here in 2 years will be obsolete for that area, will be better for them and quicker and easier for them to purchase something like Starlink, maybe instead we should be putting money into a fund to help those individuals purchase, if we're going to help that area gain their internet, maybe we should be putting that rather into a fund to help those individuals, those upfront costs of Starlink. You know, that upfront $550 cost. Maybe we put some money into helping them with that. Because I do think we owe it to them because the state was awarded coal severance money that it misspent through improper government. I think it's unfortunate that we, the taxpayers, have to once again pay for the mistakes of government. Remember, when you're asking government to solve your problems, all the mistakes we have to pay for. But at the same time, I do think this is, if we're going to do it, I think that might be a better path to look at. I think Kentucky needs to have a good conversation with Elon Musk and Starlink and see how realistic it is and have that conversation to see if that's a better investment for this area, quicker, cheaper, more effective than it will be to invest a lot of money into this infrastructure that maybe will be phased out, not needed. I think that's worth a discussion, and I think it's worth talking about, but, you know, that's just me, right? Secondly, that's on broadband. Secondly, I do want to talk about SB 8 passage. SB 8 passage today got final passage, so that will overcome veto. SB 8 deals with mandatory vaccinations. And to talk about for a second, I hear a lot of people say, well, the options for liberty. Let's talk about how we get to liberty, okay? Liberty, we need to achieve it, and there's an argument out there that says you achieve it through necessarily a third party. And I hear you guys on that argument, and if you come to the April 17th event, we might deal with that just real quick. But, which, by the way, sign up for that April 17th event. We already have 60% of the tickets sold. We might have to move locations. If we sell out of the 60 tickets that are available, and we're still like 3 weeks out, so that's over the next week, we'll go ahead and move that venue to a larger location so we can open up more tickets. This is an event mainly for people who are looking to get involved, that are looking to get good, solid Liberty Republicans in there. And I hear people all the time be like, Liberty Republican. Let me tell you what the Liberty Republicans did for you. Real liberty right now in Kentucky. We passed SB 8, proposed by a Liberty Republican, Adrian Southworth. Worked on and passed by Liberty Republican grassroots organizations, such as Brood, such as MAFA, Make America Free Again. That's a fantastic organization. Check it out. Such as a couple other groups working together to actively push for real liberty to be really done using our liberty legislators that we can work with, that we already have in place. We just made it to where, assuming that once it's vetoed, it's overcome, right? Just happened to make it to where you're not required to take a vaccine. You're not required to put something in your body you don't want in you. Isn't that interesting? That's real liberty really done right now. Right now. Those are the kinds of victories we need to be pushing for. Those are real things that can be really achieved. They're not going to take 50 years to achieve one day. And listen, I hear you. I think a third party in general is great. I think it's unnecessary because a person can run as an independent as well. I think it's unnecessary when people say, well, we only have two options in the general. Well, you didn't show up to the primary where you had more. If you showed up to the primary, you would have realized you had a lot more options. If people actually run in the primary too as well. So, that's real liberty being really done, and these are the kinds of things we want to get past here in Kentucky. I want to tell you what kind of goals we're kind of centered around. First, we want no state income tax. You'd be like, Andrew, no income tax? Oh my gosh, how are we going to survive? Just calm down. Tons of states have no income tax, I think. I'm pretty sure. Others do. I'm just joking. Anyways, no income tax. Now you say, Andrew, why do you want no income tax? Me personally, I find the income tax to be immoral. And I find it to be immoral for this simple reason. To say I own a percentage of your income is to say I own a percentage of your time. To say I own a percentage of your time is to say I own you. Last time I checked, we outlawed slavery a long time ago in this country. I personally find the income tax by the state to be immoral because it's the state claiming ownership over you. I pay my income taxes, but I do find it to be immoral. So that's something this group will push for. No income tax. Additionally as well, no abortions. If we really want to, we can force it up into the Supreme Court and pass a law that says no abortions in Kentucky and see if we can pass that on. We can at least try to, right? We could at least make it where it's defunded. We can do a lot of things for abortions. And we can just say no more abortions in Kentucky. Now, I hear a lot of you say, Andrew, liberty argument here, keep your hands off a woman's body. I've heard that before. That's a common argument you'll hear amongst the Big L Libertarian Party. And here's why. Here's why I support, and here's my liberty argument on abortions. There is a unspoken, but spoken in law, contract parents have with a kid. So as the same as a kid is born, is 3 years old, is it illegal for me to neglect that child? Is it illegal for me to just leave that child somewhere, not make sure they're taken care of, and walk away from them? That's neglect, right? It's illegal for me to just lock a kid in a room. That's illegal. I believe government enforces contracts. That's one of government's key roles, in my opinion. Government needs to enforce contracts between individuals. I believe when you have a kid, make a kid, but we're going to talk for a second. When you have a child, like physically have a child, like in your hands, right? You have a contract backed up by laws that say you're going to take care of that child. Now, the liberty argument on abortion is when does that contract start? And it is completely and impossible to say that it starts once the child's only born. Why is that impossible to say? Well, our current laws on the books state that if you kill a pregnant woman, you are charged with killing the unborn child. So quite simply put, the contract starts, in my opinion, at conception. And you have an agreement, you've made an agreement, when you made the free and willing choice to engage in Congress with another individual, that if a child was made from that, you would take care of it. That is your unspoken social contract that is backed up by laws that are on the books that government has a role in enforcing. Follow up here, a gun sanctuary state. We want the state to have laws in place that nullify federal gun laws, federal gun control. You can make it a law in a state that you cannot give up your firearm to a federal agent unless a sheriff is present. I can make it illegal in the state for you, an individual, to give up your firearm to a federal agent unless a sheriff is present. I can literally make it illegal for the federal government to come grab your guns on their own. That's a law you can pass in a state because of the 10th Amendment. You can create gun sanctuary states. You've seen gun sanctuary counties. That's protection of the Second Amendment that needs to occur, needs to happen, and we can push for. And a follow-up to that as well in liberty argument is school choice. Now, I hear a lot of you say, Andrew, that's public school now. Get your hands off my school. I can tell you this much right now. You're going to have a hard time convincing anybody when you look at the data that school choice doesn't work. You're going to have a hard time. And the reason why you're going to have a hard time convincing them is because the data plays out. It helps children. When you have the money following the child, creating freedom of choice, it creates better schools, creates a better environment. As long as the quote-unquote public schools and the charter schools are an equal playing ground, what I mean by that is is ensuring that the funding of the charter schools and public schools are the same, then it doesn't matter. Now, you could be saying public charter schools, you'll find, are able to do it cheaper as well. And they are able to do it cheaper because they don't have the bloat of a government agency. And to those people that say, well, public funds should go to public schools, I would ask you, why don't we own a public road paving? Literally, we take your taxes and then we give it to a private company to pave your roads. We take your taxes and we give it to a private company to mow your yard. We take your taxes and we give it to a maintenance company to come maintain a building. We take your taxes and we give it to a law firm, even though there's lawyers in the room, to advise us on impeachment. We take your taxes, we give it to a private company to create our computer programs. We literally take your taxes and give it to a private company in almost every other thing government does other than education. Even managing workforce development is done by a private company in this state. I do believe it's done by ResCare. I believe they're called something else now. But they handle the career centers, if I'm not mistaken, but I'm pretty sure, I kind of got some inside knowledge on this, that still happens. On literally everything else, we take public dollars, and we give it to private companies, but yet somehow on schools, that's a good argument to not do it. Makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense. And I'm not taking away your public schools out in Eastern Kentucky and everything else, and I understand you're worried about your funding, and we can talk about that, or Western Kentucky too, rural areas. But at the end of the day, we have to have school choice if we want better schooling, period. It's the way forward. It's cheaper. It's better. It provides more freedom to the parent. And after all, that's what we're looking for, right? We want more freedom. So there you go. That's the kind of goals, that's the legislation we're pushing for overall over the next several years. No income tax, state level, no abortions, gun sanctuary, state, and school choice. All solid liberty things we can get really done because we already have a number of supporters in the legislature and state senate that support it. We just need to get more Republicans in that do support it through the primary process. And if you want those things done now, not in 50 years, you got to take part in Republican primary. In order to do that, you have to be registered Republican. That really has to happen. And you ask, Andrew, how are you going to hold them accountable? Oh, they'll just fall victim to the establishment like everybody else. Don't worry, we have guardrails in place to deal with that. We'll talk about that April 17th. And you fundamentally misunderstand how the establishment maintains control. And one of the ways they maintain control is by not having primary opponents, because over half their fundraising money, only 19 out of 78 Republicans had a primary opponent. So that means the people who had general elections, and most of those people, or 50% of their donations, came directly from the party. So the party controls what happens because the money is how you win a general. Activism is how you win a primary. And if you don't understand that, I don't blame you for not understanding it, because you haven't taken political training courses, and you haven't dove into the data on how elections work. So I understand why you don't understand that, and we're going to talk about that on April 17th meeting to explain how do we get people elected with working within the primary system to get these goals done. But if you think your quickest, easiest, most efficient way forward to liberty is to not do this, you're mistaken. You're just as mistaken. We got real things done already this year. Yeah, we didn't impeach Beshear, I hear you. And of course, I'm a petitioner for impeachment, so we all know I super supported that. I put $40,000 on the line. But we did get real liberty done, and we have. We've got constitutional carry done in Kentucky. Like I said, we were able to achieve SB 8 passage, no mandatory vaccinations. And of course, the day isn't over. Who knows what else we might pull out of the hat. We do get things done here in Kentucky. So it is something you can support, and we're going to get even more done the more rhinos we get out of there. Finally, an example of why we need SBAs, example why we need to be fighting these mass mandates in the lawsuit, example why Cooperrider V Beshear is so important. We have a new variant outbreak in Eastern Kentucky. For those of you thinking COVID's winding down, apparently who knows? Supposedly this variant is a brand new variant. I mean, worldwide, brand new, never identified, maybe. Dr. Stack says we still need to synchronize the genes to confirm or deny that, but it is possible that it is a completely brand new variant, which makes you ask a question. With all of these protective measures we have in place, Why is there a brand new variant? Well, you don't need to lead too far into epidemiology to understand how variants occur. And understand one argument against this occurring should have been we all should have gotten immune, let the virus run its course fully through us all to get rid of it before it started mutating into variants to fight back to keep surviving. Of course, I'm not an epidemiologist. I've just read some stuff about it. You can read some stuff about it too. But we have a new variant outbreak, brand new, it's about maybe, in eastern Kentucky, in nursing homes. You know, these bubbles that have some of the highest COVID protection levels. And of course, in a state that's had some of the longest running COVID measures, not one of the states that's reopening, we're getting a new variant. It's funny. I'd be laughing harder if it wasn't so darn sad. That's why I said, if you think these things aren't important, it is very important. This fight is nowhere near over. We're in a fight for our liberties. We have been for decades. Most of you didn't realize it until government started knocking on your door telling you what you can or can't do. But we are in this fight. We're fighting with you. We're leading the way with some things, some lawsuits, some challenges, some bill passage. We're kind of doing everything. So feel free to support us. Once again, donate.broodco.com. Any excess money over the cost of these legal battles goes directly to Kentucky Liberty, nonprofit, going towards achieving the goals I just talked about: no income tax, no abortions, gun sanctuary, and school choice. I thank you guys for supporting. Remember to share this. Tell your friends to watch us. Tell your friends to join us. And I appreciate your guys' time so incredibly much. Have a great evening.